administrators. We have Polygon's co-founder Sandeep Newell and Aave's founder and CEO Stani Kulechov. Please put your hands together to welcome them to the stage. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I'm Ann Schraders. I'm a senior writer with Fortune magazine. I'm joined by Sandeep Newell, who is the founder of Polygon, and Stani Kulechov, the founder and CEO of Aave. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to start off and poll the audience real quick. Show of hands, how many of you guys use Twitter today? A lot of us are addicted, it's okay. How about TikTok? Okay, and how many of you guys opened up a Web3 social media app today? Okay, there's a couple in there. Well, these guys want to change that to all of you. So I would love to kind of start off and hear, broadly with, the established apps we have, the TikToks, the Twitters, millions and millions of users are on these. What is the draw for bringing those users, those mainstream users, into Web3 social media? You want to start off, Stani?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ingredients, and especially kind of like what we are thinking about, like what Web3 is solving quite a lot, and just going back to a bit in history and how kind of like social media was created is effectively with the power of internet. So people can actually come together and find and share ideas across the world with people that they have similar thoughts, and you can pretty much connect with everyone. And there's actually like a study that all people are connected with each other between 6 degrees of separation. So, and internet made that kind of like connectivity even more narrow. And I think Web2 and Web2 social and the big platforms that we have actually done incredible work in actually making it very easy for everyone to actually connect with other people and share content. So what we're actually doing with Web3 social is that we are re-architecturing a bit the way we interact with content and bringing the ownership the ownership aspect of social. So today we're using, a lot of people raised hands that they're using TikTok, Twitter, and a bunch of other social media applications, and we create a lot of value. So everyone is a creator and has that social capital, but in many cases the social capital is locked into these bigger social media platforms. And what Web3 social media does, it actually unlocks that value for you. So effectively you are the ownership of your social capital, which means your profile, the connections you're making. So obviously the early adopters who kind of like understand the value, they're already here, and many people already here in this audience as well. But to take it to the mainstream, that basically has a couple of components. One is the scalability aspect and infrastructure, which basically is what Sandeep is focusing upon. And the other one is the actual user aspect, the user experience, but also creating new experiences. So I think the way to get more people into Web3 social isn't by recreating the same applications, but recreating the new experiences.
It's interesting. And so can you quickly explain in about a sentence or two what the Lens protocol is, which is kind of the Web3 social that you both have been working on that launched earlier this year?
Yeah, sure. So with Lens protocol, you basically create on-chain profile, which means that you have your own ownership of your social media profile, and you can make connections, and then you can share content, whatever it is, music, video, audio, with your audience, and all that content actually is also can be tokenized as an NFTs. So we call effectively user-generated content as NFTs that your audience can actually then collect and you can monetize. But in a simple way, Lens protocol allows you to have ownership of your social media presence, the same way as Bitcoin or Ethereum gives you ownership of your capital. Lens does it with your social media profile.
And Sandeep, Polygon is being used right now with sort of the NFT functions of both Instagram and Reddit, which are obviously huge, like traditional Web 2 apps. So I'm curious to hear from you. We're talking about Web 3 social here and the differences, but how do you view the bridge between Web 2 and Web 3 social media and the way that you're partnering with these traditional companies?
Yeah, so I feel that, like we all in Web3, what Stani is explaining, that you own your profile like in a Web media platform. You own your profile, you have full access of like all your followers and things like that. That's the Web3 ideal scenario, right? But today, billion users are there on Web 2, which is the other extreme of the spectrum, right? And what I feel is, while pioneering protocols like Lens and so many projects built on top of Lens are doing and trying to build users here, I feel that there is a path for these billion users also, step-by-step path to come into this side. So I feel that this, as we are calling it now, Web 2.5. So this Instagram and Reddit NFTs, as many of you guys might be following, like if you see Reddit, in a matter of, I think, 1 month, it got 3 million active wallets, which is more than the largest, marketplace OpenSea, right? In a matter of 1 month. So, people are getting these experiences from these Web 2 companies and are slowly getting onboarded to Web 3. So I feel that because, my personal mission and, Polygon's mission is to get mass adoption of Web 3, and that is going to happen by innovation on this pure Web 3 side, but that's also going to happen by moving slowly, onboarding people from the Web 2 platforms into Web 3. And that's why we are so bullish on these Reddit and Instagram, and everybody is integrating with Polygon and building their NFTs.
Well, that's interesting, because I think the challenge with Web3 social media so far is that it's pretty much only crypto people who are using these protocols that are actually Web3 social. And creators in particular, they want to go where their fans are, right? And I think, how are you both thinking about the challenge of sort of jump-starting true Web3 social media? Is it, as you said, 2.5? How do you think about that, Stani?
Yeah, I definitely think that that's the case at the moment. So, like, for example, Lens protocol users, they are crypto natives. There is some exceptions. I've been pushing quite a lot regular people to actually mint the Lens profile and test the protocol out, one of the applications. So, interestingly, how Lens protocol works is just a protocol, right? So the actual experiences are built on top in form of applications, and applications can be mobile, they can be actually desktop applications, but they focus on their own experience. And why it's important, and in my opinion, is that actually today with current social media, we're very much stuck into platforms where the platforms are deciding for you the algorithm, the experience, and the policies as well. And this leads back to even the case of Twitter today and what Elon Musk is doing there, because if you think about it, it's quite a lot about what are those policies. Now, when you have a decentralized network underneath social media, it means that the actual power dynamics change completely. So the power is back on the user side, and the users have the ability to actually change from one experience to another, meaning that they can choose the algorithms they want to subscribe to, the applications and the policies, and effectively some of these applications become communities, meaning that you will use applications and experiences that are reflecting the values that you might carry. And I think that's the kind of like a case what opens up Web3 social. And I definitely agree, to get more wider adoption, it's the user experience that has to change. So for example, all the things that we have in blockchain, everything that we are used to, paying for gas, signing for transactions, that's something that has to disappear completely. And that's the case with many of the applications built on top of the Lens protocol. But the reason why we have to take this technology further is because it's a big opportunity. So first of all, there's 5 billion users on internet, and almost equal amount of users of social media. So the opportunity is huge, but everyone is locked into these different platforms. And I think decentralized protocols and decentralized tech is what can actually unlock the value.
But I'm guessing, how do you kind of get the everyday average user to care about these things, like decentralization, all these kind of things? I think, one of the other challenges too, I think, is just, getting those people on board to this kind of new technology, as you said, it's lots of crypto native users. So I guess, how many years down the line are we from the average, influencer or me, for example, using this every single day like I do Twitter?
I think the experience needs to be in a way where you really don't actually think about interacting with blockchain. And I think what's fascinating is that social media is about non-financial transactions. You can actually get all that blockchain logic into the backend. And I tend to say out loud usually that the way you build Web3 social is that you have the blockchain in the backend and the party in the front end, meaning that you will go into different kinds of experiences that didn't exist before. So I think the way to do this is not to recreate what Twitter is today or, let's say, Instagram, but actually find new experiences and interest graphs that you create new communities. And I think that's the way we get more people into Web3 social, maybe mostly without them actually knowing it, and they can learn about it and they can care about it.
When's that going to happen?
I don't know, Sandeep, do you have a
prediction?
When exactly that will happen? I think, in some way we are seeing the early signs, like what you are talking about, like if we approach the user, and I think Lens Protocol is also doing that, if we approach the user from a Web3 savvy kind of angle, we will not be able to get a lot of users. What Reddit actually showed is, if you go to Reddit NFTs, you don't even really even hear the word called NFTs. It's just digital collectibles, and you have a click experience, right? It's a custodial wallet and things like that. Even with Lens Protocol, if you use Lens Protocol based apps today, you don't have to go for you don't have to pay gas fees and things like that. They all abstract all the Web3 things, in the background. And what happens is that in the most industries, there's this rule in the social media called 1990, right? So 1990 is basically 1% of the users are the actual leaders, influencers, whom everybody follows. 9% of the people are actively engaged in the protocol in a platform, and rest 90% are just like consumers of the content, right? So what is going to happen is that those advanced settings, advanced Web3 settings, where you can go to your wallet, move your assets from your address to a self-custody address and all that, that will be good. That is going to be used with 1% or less than 5% of the people. Rest 90% of the people are going to have a simple web experience like we have today. And that's what Web3 has to do if we want to bring hundreds of millions of users into Web3. And what apps like Lens Protocol and some other teams that are trying to do is, they just provide you an access to this advanced settings, to those 2-3-5% people who might want to do the actual Web3 technology stuff. 95% of the people should have an experience which they have nothing to deal with Web3 or NFT at all. That's how we are going to get like hundreds of millions of users into Web3, as I feel.
Well, you guys brought up Twitter earlier, and I want to get into it. Let's kind of think about this. So Elon Musk just acquired Twitter, and there's been a lot of talk about, what it's going to do in the Web3 space, in the crypto space, in the payment space. What do you think Twitter should look like? If we're talking about a place that has a lot of users, right? What do you think it should look like in terms of that Web3 angle? Or do you think it should be a part of Web3?
I think, Elon understands a bit of Web3, but still, it's his understanding is still at a base level. It needs to grow more. And I think, but Twitter has a lot of internal capable teams, and they were actually the first one to allow NFTs to be and PFPs to be displayed on your profiles, right? So I think there are Web3 native teams within Twitter who understand this part. And I think the best thing about Elon is that he is willing to experiment. He's going to do whatever it takes to make Twitter profitable, and that's why I keep going back to Reddit. So for example, Reddit's yearly revenue is $300 million, right? And with the NFTs that they recently did on Polygon, they have made $100 million in 1 month, or $10 million in 1 month. And if imagine over the year, they are able to do $100 million revenue from there, then suddenly you are seeing that their 30% of Reddit's revenue came from this new technology, and this then becomes like a kind of an avalanche towards everyone, because now all the teams, all the companies, all the social media or Web2 companies as we call them, they see a real business model here where they can make money, their communities can get engaged. And I think that's the path which sooner or later Twitter will also see. And I see it's inevitable, especially in the leadership of Elon, that you will see more of Web3 integrated into Twitter. They recently actually also allowed you to put the NFTs in your tweets from the marketplaces. There are 4 marketplaces. One of them is also for us is on the Polygon, and you can actually buy and sell NFTs and put the content of NFTs on your tweets. You can say that, okay, hey, buy my NFT on this link, and you can go and buy. So those integrations Twitter is constantly doing. I think that they're only going to accelerate on this.
Interesting. I want to kind of switch gears briefly because, Stani, you were kind of describing what Lens Protocol does and kind of your vision for Web3 social, and it all sounds great, right? But I think introducing it through the technology of blockchain and decentralization also introduces a lot of potential issues, and I think one big one is content moderation.
Yeah.
Obviously a very controversial thing with Twitter and Facebook and things like that, but I guess when it's there's no central entity kind of governing these things, what's to prevent these bad actors from doing terrible things and abusing the platform? How do you view the responsibility in Web3 of content moderation, or how do you view that playing into the space?
I mean, that's the biggest kind of like issue in social media, content moderation and curation. So the way I see it is that different platforms have their trust and safety policies. What's kind of like challenging at the moment is that it's usually a centralized entity or like a body that is actually deciding where to draw those lines. And in hard, clear cases, it's more easier. But then when it's more about opinions, it gets difficult, right? So the way I think what's the benefit of decentralized social media is that you have all this raw content, and actually you can create and build on top of different kinds of moderation policies. So there doesn't need to be only one particular entity doing content moderation or curation, but there could be multiple. And a good example is that in the Lens community, there's a DAO called Cultivator DAO, and the role of the Cultivator DAO is actually moderate and curate content. And the secondary idea of the Cultivator DAO is to fork the Cultivator DAO. So if you don't like what they're doing, you actually should create a new DAO and moderate. And it's actually about decentralizing not just the curation, but also kind of like discovery. And a good example in Twitter could be that why should Twitter decide about the blue check mark? Because it could be decided by different communities, and they can have their own badges. And you can just not only verify users, but you can verify content as well and categorize. And I think that's where the power is, that anyone can actually have access to participate and moderate, and that's going to be the biggest difference.
So it's like if you don't like it, you just leave and create your own?
If you don't like it, you basically go to an application which is more aligned towards your own policies and values and affect through that application. So I think what will happen is that we will see different kinds of communities, but having that kind of like an open network creates a competition that you really need to moderate, and you really need to care about the users, because otherwise they will go somewhere else.
I want to get your predictions for the last couple of minutes here. Sandeep, maybe let's start with you. When you open up your phone and you're going to on social in 10 years, for example, what is it going to look like when you start to open up a social app and you want to browse? What is that vision for you in 10 years? Let's do 10 years.
200%. Like, it's going to be Web3 only. Like, we can do a small first principles mental exercise. Imagine you had two social media apps. One is a Web2 app where you don't control anything, you don't control your followers, you don't get your the revenue that is coming from your followers or the content, and you are being sold ads. On the other side, you will have a Web3 social app where you control your followers. You can move out of the app if the app is trying to push something to you. As a creator, imagine a problem where you are a creator, you spend 5 years of your life for getting 1 million followers for you, and this is your bread and butter, and suddenly you are deplatformed. Imagine like you have this kind of platform, and on the other side you have Web3 social media where you have your followers. You can move away with your followers wherever you want to go. You own the followers. You directly interact with the followers. You directly get the revenue and everything. Which app you're going to choose? I think 200% you're going to choose a Web3 app, and I think in 10 years we are going to reach the user experience level. We are going to reach the same place. The kind of penetration in terms of the users we are going to reach, and I have absolutely no doubt 10 years is a very good time. In 10 years, I think the Web3 social media platforms will be much bigger, and even if those who would be Web2, they would also be increasingly looking like Web3. I have no doubt in that Web3 is going to win in terms of social media.
Stani, in like 10 seconds. Anything to add?
I think so. We are trying to make it very, very easy for anyone to build social media applications, any part of the world. So some kids, some part of the world could actually create the next biggest application in social. And it happens to be Web3 social because you have all this network built up. So every single application that is built on top of Lens protocol actually brings more users into the same draft. So it really makes things easier and reduces the risk to build. And I think that's where the future is.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you everyone.